Big developments are being made on the implementation of the Inflation Reduction Act, and the Biden administration has released an important announcement regarding pay boost for American workers. Officials say over 1 million Americans will receive big paychecks thanks to a new update, and in nod of a labor union, President Biden is moving to boost wages for construction workers on projects paid with federal funding. It's a step that will appeal to a key consistency ahead of next year's election, and potentially shrink the pay gap between the North and South states. The Biden administration announced today that it intends to restore a definition of the prevailing wage that was abandoned 4 decades ago by Ronald Reagan. This would update and would change the prevailing wage calculated and could put thousands of extra dollars every year into the pockets of construction crews working on federal projects. Even Kamala Harris said at an event in Philadelphia, "Many workers are paid much less than they deserve, much less than they value of their work, and not just by a little, in some cases, thousands of dollars." The announcement of the rule comes as the Biden administration is just pouring billions of more dollars into new clean energy investments through the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, into roads and other bridges and other public work projects. The Laborers International Union of North America said the update will protect the wages of millions of workers, construction workers too. Prevailing wages are basically the hour rate of pay and benefits paid to workers in a particular area. Even before Reagan changed the federal rule to the 1980s, employers were required to pay construction workers on federal projects the equivalent of wages paid to at least 30% of workers. Now, Reagan changed the rule so the prevailing wage was determined by wages paid to 50% of workers. Now, Biden plans to restore the previous definition used under this act, and in the law that requires the payment of prevailing wages rates to all laborers and mechanics on federal construction contracts. Now, reverting to the previous definition means the prevailing wage on federal projects would more closely align with union scale wages. Senior officials have actually said that the update would raise the minimum wage requirement and affect more than 1 million construction workers. Analysts have predicted that the workers in the South and southwestern states would actually benefit the most under this new rule. States in the South typically have paid lower wages and have fewer union protections, and trade groups that oppose the change argue it will cost taxpayers more money because it would actually just make federal projects more expensive. But in the aftermath of this, one analyst has actually found an ominous forecast for the outlook of government finances. Using data from the budget office, they broke it down to U.S. government debt rising $5 billion every day for the next 10 years. It's the equivalent of giving every American citizen $15 each morning. Now, according to the CBO report, debt will jump 98% of U.S. GDP to 180% by 2053, rivaling ratios only seen during the crisis in 2020. But now, everybody, what do you think Joe Biden would do about the fourth stimulus payment? Can he get the job done this year? Tell me what you think in the comments.
Theatrics are unbecoming of elected American officials, and they are a distraction from the real threats that America, Israel, and our Arab friends face in the Middle East. I hope these threats were the focus of the conversation between the two presidents. Of course, the threats to our shared interests have grown in large part due to the Biden administration's naive approach to the world's largest state sponsor of terror.
Something that can support funding for local police in communities across the country.
However, progressives have been very wary of the infrastructure deal because it leaves out key priorities. And Democratic leaders in Congress plan to move a bipartisan bill and a larger reconciliation bill together in order to try to get Joe Biden's agenda passed in full. A top Democratic lawmaker said that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is standing firm on her demand that the Senate pass the House's reconciliation bill before the lower chamber will consider the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. Speaking to reporters after a House caucus meeting, the Budget Committee Chairman, John Yarmuth, said that Speaker Pelosi remained committed to passing the second infrastructure measure, focused on Democrats' broad policy priorities. Biden split his two-part Build Back Better proposal into 2 packages for Congress to pass. The first is the American Jobs Plan, which is focused on infrastructure, while the second, the American Families Plan, is aimed at funding Democrats' domestic policy platform. Now, folks, I need you to know this. Over 80 members of Congress have been urging President Biden to support recurring direct cash payments and enhance unemployment compensation to Americans until the end of the crisis. There is also a proposal for automatic stabilizers, whereby if certain economic triggers were hit, these programs could be deployed again. without the need for legislative action to speed their delivery. When U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen sat before the House Ways and Means Committee last week to speak about the White House's proposal for the 2022 budget, she was pressed about these measures. The Treasury Secretary Yellen said, "Sometimes stimulus checks are a really good approach. I think we need to look into the economics, and we would be happy to work with you." A group of Democratic senators, including Ron Wyden, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders, sent a letter to the president requesting recurring direct cash payments and automatic unemployment insurance extensions tied to economic conditions. A letter from members of the House Ways and Means Committee renewed the push for additional stimulus. The American Rescue Plan's $1,400 checks alone will keep 11 million people out of poverty this year, with unemployment insurance expansion and other provisions in the bill accounting for another 5 million. A fourth and a fifth check could keep an additional 12 million people out of poverty. Combined with the effects of the ARP, direct cash payments could reduce the number of poverty in 2021 from 44 million to 16 million. The Urban Institute estimated that another stimulus payment could reduce poverty by at least 6.4% in 2021, and many economists are on board with this. An open letter from experts in the field argued that direct cash payments are an essential tool that will boost economic security, drive consumer spending, and hasten the recovery, and promote certainty at all levels of government and the economy for as long as necessary. Personally, folks, I believe that a fourth round of stimulus checks must be sent out. Our politicians must do a better job in helping out the American people. And if you guys agree with me, then let's get this video to 1,000 likes. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I truly appreciate everyone's amazing support. And until next time, have a great day and stay safe.
People haven't returned from the pre-pandemic level. That is, people have left the job market because they got so frustrated. So there's still a lot of ground to cover. And clearly, the enhanced jobless benefits may have kept some people from looking. But what's happened also is that wage rates have gone up about 3.6%, hourly wage rates over a year ago. So that's incentivizing, it's attracting people back into the job market. And you could say that those enhanced benefits kept people essentially spending through the pandemic and engaged in the economy because they could afford to be engaged through those benefits. So it worked both ways. Surely some people were disincentivized to get back into full-time employment. In other regards, it kept them economically viable through the pandemic. I think the other thing to look at is
at a time when the average Social Security benefit is just $1,328 a month, and over a third of senior citizens rely on Social Security for virtually all of their income. Our job must be to expand benefits, not cut them. Our job is to strengthen Social Security